So Holly can admit as more people join us, we'll kickstart with our topic, and this is our ninth session. So we run these monthly sessions as Lunch and Learn. This topic is prepare your processes so ERP doesn't break them, doing more with less. Let's get into it. Firstly, as usual, we all welcome to this monthly lunch and learn. This is 30-minute session where I will take the opportunity to walk you through the topic. Then we open for 15-minute discussion at the end. It's a light and easy session. There is no formality. We like to engage in real discussion. So one thing is really, so whatever resonates, take action. So that means if there may be a minor thing that comes out of the session, please take action. It shouldn't be any information session and then we move to the next thing. So the recording will be available after the session. So that means you don't have to take any notes and we go through the introductions. Over to you, Arjun.
Hi, my name is Arjun and I run a small business called BP Flow Solutions where we deal with a lot of custom-made parts, mainly engineered parts for process and mining industries as well as oil and gas industries. I'm looking forward to this session because as we scale up, we would need some sort of ERP and SP's expertise and knowledge on this matter will be very helpful to get ourselves ready before we get like a ERP software or something.
Thank you, Arjun. David? Sorry, you're on mute, David.
Apologies for that. David from Ogilvy, and I'm obviously a compatriot of Spreads. We're in a similar industry on different sides of the country, and I'm always keen to learn and share information with like-minded consultants. So I'm keen to hear what you've got to say.
Thank you, David. And with us, Harley is joining us, and Harley is one of my colleagues. So welcome, Harley, as well. We have any issues, Harley can help us in the background. So let's get into it. So firstly, we'll share a quick context, and this is very simple. Imagine we are starting ERP implementation. So that means ERP project is approved. We are about to start. Currently, we have convoluted processes. So all the processes within different divisions are manual, few are on spreadsheets. It's hard to pinpoint where the problem is, and this is not uncommon in most organizations. So the narrative is that we are going to go with out-of-the-box processes. The decision is made that with the new ERP implementation, we are going to go ahead with standard out-of-the-box processes. So at the high level, it sounds good, it sounds okay, but there is a confusion. The confusion is we don't know what exactly out-of-the-box processes means. So what exactly out-of-the-box processes will deliver? So that's the confusion, and in this set of session we are going to unpack this confusion. All right, the first thing is really we identify and say why should we bother? So that's the one of the main topic, and say why SP, why even we are talking about it, why processes matter. If we have convoluted process and bit of automation with ERP, are we just fine? I think it's a valid question to ask. So we start asking ourselves, why should we bother about processes? So let's take an example of these 5 set of companies, and we ask ourselves why and how these organizations and companies are different. So we compare Amazon with eBay, Uber with Swan Taxis, Commonwealth Bank with Police and Nurses Bank, IKEA with Furniture Bazaar, Uniqlo with H&M. At a very high level, few of us may be thinking, look, this is one company is fundamentally bigger than other company, which is true. We also may be thinking one company, which is the first company in these examples, is high tech as compared to the second company in comparison. That's true as well. But what I'd like you to focus is the fundamental difference is not so much in their size or technology. The fundamental difference is in their processes. So if you think the process of ordering a cab using Uber versus any local company, say Swan Taxi in WA or Yellow Cabs in Victoria, the fundamental difference is the process and the experience one is getting. And similarly, Amazon, our whole end-to-end process of looking at the different products and finally receiving it at our doorstep, the whole process is fundamentally different between Amazon and eBay. So what technology is doing is it is an enabler. It is helping these organizations to implement these processes that can scale. So the fundamental difference is not so much of their technology or the size. The fundamental difference is the process. And with that in mind, we are going to sum this up and say the difference is the good processes in the examples which we shared are supported with a great tech. And that is why, if we look back, our shopping experience within IKEA to any other competitor, which may be local, the difference is the whole end-to-end process of the way we step in the store, look around things, pick our stuff, and we get our stuff in the boot. The whole process is thought through. It is supported with the technology. So the fundamental difference is the process in itself, and what technology is doing is it is enabling for that process to scale. So that is the fundamental difference in these examples which we have shared, and the technology is enabler. Now, we all have seen big organizations where the company is big, they have got big software like say SAPs and Oracles and Microsoft FinOps, but they're still miserable. Their products are still miserable. Their services are still miserable. And we have all seen such organizations. So I think one thing which makes and breaks our implementation is these processes. So this is something we are going to unpack a little more. All right, so where we are now, so what we have just established is why processes are important. Let's break some myths. Okay. Okay. So firstly, we hear about out-of-the-box processes. Adapt and adopt. These two things are interrelated. And the third one is process mapping. Let's unpack this a little bit. Okay, sorry. Can you see me? Okay. So let us unpack this a little bit. Firstly, when we say out-of-the-box processes, what does that mean? Arjun or David, have you heard about out-of-the-box processes before? So what is our understanding about out-of-the-box processes? Anyone want to jump in?
Something unconventional that you don't do on day-to-day basis, but you sort of like figure it out that it's not day-to-day basis, but it still works well.
Okay. David, anything you'd like to add?
It's just the standard process that any of the particular applications bring to the table. So it's no modifications or no customizations. It's just how it comes when you unpack it out of the box.
Great. And this is very common in ERP industry. We hear we are going to adopt and adapt to the standard ERP processes. And point one and point two, they are interrelated. And the third point is the process mapping. Let's hear this as well. And these are few myths we are going to unpack and really want to make sure what it means. So process mapping for the companies that map processes for living, the standard narrative is we are going to map your current processes and your future processes, which we say as is and to be processes. Based upon that, we will work with the ERP vendor make sure that your future processes are actually built. That means your future processes are actually implemented with the ERP implementation. And what we are going to establish right now is that these three things are look at a high level, they look simple, but we are not clear with these three concepts to start with. Now let's break this out into basic steps and try to make sense of what it means. So firstly, the first 2 points on out-of-the-box processes and adapt and adopt will unpack this and will cover what we mean by process mapping. Let's knock this process mapping out of the way first. If we hear anything to say as is, we must, so our current processes must be mapped and future processes must be mapped, and we hear from the organization that is they do that for a living, I think we should be very suspicious. We may not need to do all of that work. Firstly. Secondly, if we are doing this work along with ERP implementation, we are doubling our scope without knowing. And thirdly, for the organizations which have gone on through that journey, they generally get sick and tired of running all these two projects in parallel. So process improvement along with ERP implementation, if they are not, these projects are not fully scoped in parallel to run in parallel, generally one project is sort of dropped, which is generally the process improvement, and people just implement ERPs and move to the next thing. So the key message with the process mapping is learn this with caution, that it is not simple of mapping your current processes and the future processes and somehow magically with ERP implementations things will just flow. These two, one is ERP implementation is a project, process improvement is another project. They can run in parallel if we plan for them to be running in parallel. They just not automatically happen. That's the key message. Now let's cover the first 2 points with the basic definitions. So when we say process, what do process mean? So here I have listed 3 examples, 3 layers. Let's unpack this a little bit. Firstly is a value chain. When we say at a very high level, this is an end-to-end business flow. I am calling it as a value chain. It is industry known term, but we may be using value chain as a workflow, maybe different terms. That's all good. But for now, we are saying it is a value chain, which means end-to-end business flow. Business ownership takes care of it. So that means they own it. And in this example, we have a request to service to cash. That means our customer have request for a service, we fulfill that service, we send them an invoice and we receive the cash. and it's done. So this is end-to-end flow. Underneath that, we've got process, which is 5 different processes underneath one value chain. It could be intake, service delivery, revenue, governance. Underneath each process, we have got ERP transactions. And again, we have, say, accounts receivable as an example. Let's take a look at the next example. I'll make it bigger. So let us take the example of the, I'm sorry, it's a little bit bigger, but is it readable, or do you want me to, it's readable. Okay. So on the top, we have got layer 1, which I was referring to as a workflow or a value chain. It goes from a request to service delivery to revenue and collection, and then we close. Underneath each request, we have a process which is related to request management, which is front office. And then we have operations, process related to service delivery, process related to finance and governance. And then we close. For each process, we have ERP and system transactions to how to create a ERP service request or CRM service request, update and create a work order, update the work order, and all of these are ERP transactions. Now, coming back to the myth of out-of-the-box processes and adapt and adopt, when someone is telling us that we are implementing or we are adapting and adopting to standard out-of-the-box ERP processes, by default, we are referring to ERP transactions. This is the level of which we are talking about. That means the process of receiving the payments, we are going to adapt and adopt to the standard ERP. We're not going to change it. It doesn't make sense. So why we want to change how we receive money, how we send the invoices? This is the standard process. We will adapt to whatever ERP offers. However, by default, layer 2 and layer 3 are not in the question. So when we are in ERP implementation mode, we must be clear when we say out of the box processes, which level are we talking about? So that's a key message I want to convey for these 2 points. The key message is, let's get clarity on the definition of process. There are 3 layers within process management discipline. And for ERP to adopt out-of-the-box processes, generally it is the 3rd layer. Layer 2 and layer 1 are often missed. And with ERP implementation, generally we assume that once the ERP is done, everything is done. We miss on layer 2 and layer 3. That's one of the key messages I wanted to cover. Okay, with that in mind, let's cover this or complete this topic, and we move to the next topic with some examples. So the key messages are this. The first is get an alignment on the definition of the process. We should be very clear about what is the definition of process. There are 3 layers and we should be clear about that. Secondly, process management is a discipline. We must understand who takes ownership of the process management discipline upfront. And thirdly, we must formalize it. So who is the ultimate owner of process management discipline? And we set the baseline as what is our plan for the process management discipline. And it can be very simple. Now, this is just an example to say, for our project, this is again an example. For our project, we are going to document our end-to-end value chains. That means layer 1. So that is layer 1. So we are going to document our layer 1. That's all we are going to do. For phase 1, we are going to adapt and adopt or use basic processes. So whatever is minimal viable product, we'll go with that. In phase 2 of our ERP implementation, we are going to improve and optimize our processes. So that's one step ahead from improvement side. And throughout the implementation, we are going to use out of the box ERP transactions, which is layer 3. So this gives us clarity. As when we say out of the box, we're talking about ERP transactions. We're not talking about layer 2 and layer 3. For layer 1, we are documenting. Layer 2, we are doing phase 1, this thing, phase 2, that. So that level of clarity will help us to understand what we are going to do, and we'll give clarity to the executives that that is our plan of attack for the process management discipline. I'll stop there and want to make sure that I'm still with everyone before we cover the next topic. Yeah, David, I've got hands up there. Any questions so far? Okay, let's keep going. Firstly, now let's cover the challenge. Why process management is too challenging. We are going to unpack 7 key hotspots, why this process management discipline is too complex. There may be more hotspots, but this is generally what we see in day-to-day business. Firstly is ownership. We cover a few times who owns. So these are the questions, and I would like you to reflect in your organization to say who take ownership of end-to-end processes. So who is a owner of process management discipline in your organization? It is often not very clear. It is not your IT manager, by the way. It is not your ERP manager as well, but who is that? That's first question. Then we have got shadow processes where we have a process or ERP transaction within our ERP, but over a period of time, people come and go. They invent and reinvent their own processes in parallel with ERP, how we manage that. Then we've got process variation where there are 3 different teams. Each team is doing same work, but their processes are very different. And that is related to sales, operations, governance, not uncommon. So how we manage process variation. Fourth one is the decision gaps. So who decides what process to follow and what not to follow. So who that goes to point 1. So who takes ownership of the overall discipline. Data big breakdown. That means when I'm refining processes, I'm based a lot of my decisions on data. And when the data is not consistent, not the data integrity is not followed, the statuses are not moved in right in time, the bad data is entered, then I cannot make any logical decisions on the process improvement. So how we make sure from a governance side, the correct data, the complete integrate data is entered within the system. Point 6 is exception handling. Something goes wrong there. So how do we manage? So things don't work the way, and there are all these edge cases. How do we manage exceptions? And last but not least is visibility. So how we visualize what we are saying it should happen is actually being done. How we visualize that all that good processes that we are putting in place are actually working, not working, people are following it, how we can further improve and so forth. So these are 7 hotspots that I would like you to consider before we move too far ahead into the ERP implementation. So these are 2 actions for all of us on a call. Evaluate for your project out of these 7 processes, which and so these are the 7 hotspots. So evaluate for your organization where the risks are. Have we got the owner of the process? Have we got shadow processes in the organization? How about the decision gaps? How about the visibility? So ask these questions within the context of your own organization and see what risks come. I'm sure there will be too many concerns around the process management, irrespective of the organization you are serving. The second point is Bob's spreadsheets. These are the spreadsheets which accounts department have for managing different processes, operations, sales. All these outside of ERP spreadsheets to manage work, do an audit and you'll be surprised how many spreadsheets exist to support the workflow. The key message here is it is a discipline. It is not straightforward. It is not a task. These are 7 categories we should be looking to understand the level of risk we are exposed to and why improving processes is not that straightforward. And these are 2 actions I would like you to consider. Okay, now with that, we have covered the challenge. So the journey so far is we have covered why processes are so important. Number 1. The second one, the topic is we have busted, hopefully, few myths related to the processes. Typically, out of the box processes, one, adapt and adopt. And what we've just covered is the definition of process. It is a discipline. We have covered 7 process hotspots. And where we sit right now is I urge you to take actions based upon the hotspots and Bob's spreadsheet. Now, the last topic we are going to cover and then we'll open for discussion is this. What do we need? So you may ask, look, SP, yep, it makes sense. Process management is important. It is vital. It is a discipline. But where do we start? What do we do? So what I urge you is consider process management as a discipline, and we need to have a process to manage our process management discipline. And this is a very simplest, trying to make it very simple. So we have a starting point. So this is a process I'm sharing so we can take some action with where we are right now. The first thing we can do is we have a process library blueprint. That means irrespective of which organization you're working, you may be local government, not-for-profits, for-profits, but start with a process library. That means for your value chains, your processes, and at that level, we take a list of, imagine a big Excel spreadsheet of all your value chains and processes. So we start with that list. Now the question is how we create that list. It's very simple. We ask ChatGPT as a starting point and refine it. So it's not very difficult nowadays to get that level of detail. So start with process library. That's your starting point. Then create a process management owner. That means that individual is responsible for process improvement within your organization. That doesn't have to be related to ERP. That discipline starts before ERP and never ends. So choose an owner who will be running the show, the process management discipline for our organization. And at a executive level, that's the third point, set a mandate to say what is the role and responsibility of that discipline and governance to make sure things are actually happening. I know it's a lot of stuff, but these things are not covered, and that's why I'm trying to stress a lot on this process management discipline. The general assumption is when we complete the ERP implementation, we are done. We are not done because process management starts before ERP implementation and it keeps on going. ERP is a tool to help us improve these processes, but that's something we don't talk that much. The importance is high, and that's one of the key reasons we are not receiving returns on our investment, because process management discipline is non-existent in most organizations. Here are my closing thoughts. Process management discipline, it is a discipline. Again, I'm just reiterating, it is not a task. Secondly, it starts before the project. So process management doesn't matter if you're working on ERP implementation, thinking about ERP or implementing ERP, consider process management as a separate discipline that exists already even before start of the project, and it never ends. So it should just keep on going. ERP is a tool which will help to improve the processes. It is not end in itself. All right, that's pretty much it from my side. So we've covered the topic. Now we open for open discussion. We'll go around the table and ask questions. So any questions, concerns from your experience, anything you'd like to share? Okay, I'll call a name. So Kunal, David, Rachel, Arjun, anything you'd like to cover, share?
I'll break the silence for you. The only point I was kind of going to make there is from a process mapping perspective, if you're going to adapt and adopt, as you put it, to the out-of-the-box processes, if you don't do that, you're opening yourselves up to a level of customization. And then that customization is potentially not as catastrophic as it used to be from an upgradable perspective under the current SaaS systems, but you are moving yourself down the risk curve by making changes to the processes. So, you know, the out-of-the-box process and then the change management that comes along with that is a critical part to what you're talking about, right?
Yep, absolutely right. I think the key thing is really when we are making those customizations, we are being fully aware, are we making those customizations because our staff are trying to match the old process with the new ERP, or the customizations are actually part of the process improvement. I think if as long as we are making that distinction clear, then if it is the later, that means it is a part of process improvement. It may be worth it because we are making that investment into improve the process, as well as that is going to serve the organization. However, it is the first one which, we are used to that process so much that we really want to have the same process in ERP. That customization is more of a change, an outcome of a change resistance, where someone so ingrained with the old process, we want to replicate the same thing in the ERP, which is, we see that often as well. Then I think it's obviously it's not worth it. But I agree with you, nowadays customizations, they may cost money, but they may not be that sort of bad word. They did upgradable with the SaaS platforms.
I have a follow-up question on that. If we are going to customize the processes, like as you say, out of the box processes, what sort of like dollar values are we talking about compared to the standard package?
I think it's depends upon multiple variables nowadays. With modern ERPs, workflows, even end user, again there are too many variables, but the end user or business user, they can personalize things, they can add simple workflows themselves. There are no code involved, so all the big and small ERPs, they are moving from last 5-15 years or so, they're moving more and more from a business focused customizations. So we can drag and drop design forms, save it. So that means we can do a lot of work ourselves as a business user. So for small organization, it works well. For bigger organization, we need a little bit of governance because people are changing the way they want. Then again, everything is haphazard. So there needs to be a level of control. And there are customizations where we need to write a script, and that's where the cost goes up and someone needs to maintain it. And then there may be customizations that are related to integrations, then APIs are involved. And again, so it gets a little bit more technical and cost goes up. So it varies, but most of the customizations are can be done by a business user. it's for smaller organizations. That used to be the case. For medium-sized organizations, bigger organizations, we don't allow the users to do it. So the cost is coming down massively.
Thanks.
Okay. If there are no more questions or concerns, or then we will.
Good.
All right, great. All right, we'll wrap up there. Thank you all for joining, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
See ya.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.